I have been teaching the Star Spangled Banner at Eastside for a very long time now. When I first took the job, I was informed that part of the tradition of Eastside was that students should learn a patriotic song every month to perform at the assemblies. That's fine by me. I've always enjoyed singing the patriotic songs of our country, and I believe that a big part of music education is teaching the songs of their people, right? Our folk songs, our patriotic songs. So we started. And not too far in, I realized that our national anthem is not easy. How do you break it down for kindergartners and second graders to understand? There are so many foreign-sounding words. And I only had a vague understanding of the story. I could tell it was a story about a battle, but which one? I don't know. And I knew it was written by Francis Scott Key, and I thought he was a lawyer, but I wasn't for sure. So I started doing my research. And once I started, I never really stopped, because what I discovered about the Star Spangled Banner is that it's a fascinating bit of American history. And it sums up our American experience in so many ways. So I've started teaching my students by teaching them the story first. So I guess that's what we will do too. It was the War of 1812. This was the first major war our 40-ish-year-old nation was in, and it was against our old enemies, the British. Boo. Why were we at war again with the British? Well, it was mostly for economic reasons. You see, at the same time, Britain was at war with France, i.e. Napoleon. And they told us that we could not sell our goods to anyone but them. Well, we did not like that idea. And we tried to negotiate, but they did not go the way we wanted. So then we also declared war on Britain. And it was dragging on and on into 1814. Now, you must remember at this time, America's army was mostly made of militias, state militias, and minutemen. Our standing army was very small. And this caused a lot of problems because each state's training programs were very different from each other. Some were well trained, some were not. When they were called upon to come, sometimes they came, sometimes they said, oh, we're going to wait and see if we need to defend our territory. So, because of this mismatch of militiamen, it wasn't going well for us in the war, and it kept dragging on and on. So in 1814, guess what? Britain's war with France ended. They defeated Napoleon. What? And guess who they were coming for next? Us. Yep. So they started sending more troops and more of their ginormous battleships to America. And they thought, ooh, now that we are strong, what shall we look for? What shall we take first? And they decided upon the capital, which for some reason America did not think was needing defending at the time. They thought they would go other places. But no, Britain put their sights on Washington, D.C., and promptly took it over because it was not very well defended. When they took it over, what did they decide to do? They decided to burn down the White House. Now, can you imagine living in a country where your capital has been burnt to the ground? That's the state of America in 1814. And now the British have set their sights on the next target down the road, Baltimore. Now, Baltimore is a port city, and it's also known by the British as a den of pirates. Because the one thing Americans were good at was raiding their ships and taking all the booty. It's about the only thing we were doing well in the war at the time. So, here they come. Thankfully, the militia in Baltimore is getting ready. And thankfully, there's a fort called Fort McHenry, which is protecting the harbor. Now, Fort McHenry is being commanded by Major Armistead. Major Armistead is no slouch. He knows that the British are coming. Well, he hopes the British come to his fort. So he decides to commission a flag to give a raspberry to all those British coming to his fort to try to take it over. So he commissions Mary Pickersgill, who was a big flag maker at the time, to make him not just a flag, but a flag. This flag was 30 feet tall and 42 feet wide. Just to give you a little help, one of its 15 stars was 2 feet tall. One of its 15 stripes, yes, it had 15 stripes, was also 2 feet wide. This thing was ginormous. It was so big that she had to take over a tavern floor to get it finished with a small army of servants and relatives to help her. It was crazy. So much. So, here we are. Now it's early September in 1814, and the stage is set for the battle that will inspire the song. British troops are marching towards Baltimore by land. The British Navy is having their biggest bomb ships come up the Patapsco River to Baltimore. There are 5 of the biggest ships in the world now in Baltimore Harbor, as well as a rocket launching ship. And on September 14th, there is also a young lawyer named Francis Scott Key, who also thinks himself a poet, who is sailing out to a British ship in Baltimore Harbor to negotiate the release of an American doctor named Dr. Beans. Yes, that was his name. Dr. Beans is being accused of being a spy, but Francis Scott Key has proof that he is innocent. Okay, so here we go. We've got a city on the edge, a couple of Americans with a bird's eye view in the harbor, a fort commander with a giant flag, and a British naval force ready to pick a fight. Because what do those Americans know? Oh, so on September 14th, 1814, the British begin throwing all of their explosive might at the fort. There are rockets going up and bombs bursting in the air. But because Captain Armistead and so many others have been so smart, they have sunk ships within the harbor so that it's too hard for the British ships to get too close. So they're doing just fine. And also the militias that are defending the land of Virginia, Baltimore, and Pennsylvania are doing their job of defending the city from the other side. So the bombs are bursting. The rockets are going off. Francis Scott Key and the doctor are watching from the ship. And they're hoping all through the day and into the night that the bombs and the rockets will still be going off, because that means that they're still in the battle. America has not given up the fight. So they wait and they listen for those bombs bursting in air, and they look for those rockets' red glare in the sky. Sound familiar? And all through the night this happens. But as the dawn comes, or dawns early, as some of my students think the song says, the battle goes quiet. There's not a sound of any war going on anymore. And Francis Scott Key cannot tell because they're on the enemy ship. They won't tell him what's going on. So he looks out to the fort to see whose flag is up there, because he knows if the American flag is there, we won. If the British flag is there, we lost. Well, Major Armistead does not want to keep the people of Baltimore waiting, so in the early morning light, he raises his giant flag over the fort. And Francis Scott Key sees it from the ship, and he is mesmerized. Never before has the flag symbolized or meant so much to him. It's a symbol of hope and of freedom, and that democracy is continuing. So, a couple days later, after he and Dr. Beans get off the ship, he sits down right away to write his 4 stanzas. He entitles it The Battle of Fort McHenry, and promptly sends it off to be published. Now, at the time, he was thinking of a tune that he and many other people knew called To Anacreon in Heaven. Believe it or not, it was a tune people sang. Crazy. Anyways, so he had these broadside pamphlets printed, which was a way they shared news a lot in those times. And quickly, they spread out across the city and other places. People began singing it to Anacreon in Heaven and being mesmerized by the battle and the victory. So between this victory and another victory by Andrew Jackson in the Battle of New Orleans, hope began spreading. Americans finally began feeling like they were on steady ground. But more importantly than this, I believe the people of America began seeing themselves as Americans rather than members of separate United States. They began seeing a national identity and began questioning what it is we stand for together as a democracy. And the symbol that the nation now came to see as that beacon of democracy was, you guessed it, the American flag. Now, I don't know if you know this, but our country is kind of obsessed with its flag. Most other countries are not. The Star Spangled Banner itself, the actual flag that flew above the fort, became a mythical symbol and was passed down from armistice to armistice and was brought out for major patriotic events. The song and poem, The Battle of Fort McHenry, would not become our national anthem officially until 1931, but it has always had a special place in Americans' hearts, even from its beginning, I should say. Some have questioned whether we should have a different national anthem. It is about an old battle, and it was written by a man who actively supported slavery. Yes, it's true. But at its core, the Star Spangled Banner was written at a time when Americans feared the end of their country, when hope seemed waning that the American experience was coming to an end. And this song gave them hope. It gave them unity. It is a song that thereafter emblazoned the idea of country in our minds, and it has kept showing up over and over again through time when we want to honor our country the most. I find that its epilogue, its last two lines, encapsulate what is the best of our country. It says, "Oh, say," which is like saying, "Hey, does that Star-Spangled Banner yet wave over the land of the free and the home of the brave?" Whenever I sing this song, I always feel like those two lines make me stop and think. Sometimes I stop in gratitude. Sometimes I stop in prayer. Sometimes I stop to ponder, are we doing our best as a country? But always it gives me huge pride that I live in a land where freedom is celebrated and we fight for democracy and unity.